last I built up courage to write him this song. I'm sorry that it took so long, but I knew I had to tell his story in order to right these wrongs. So much in his life is already long gone, but that's just life. After death there's no revival. We constantly search for ways to cope with survival. Life, death, or somewhere in between. It's a vicious cycle, just know that it always comes full circle. Now these lines are my attempt to help reenact. At this time you could find him living in Iraq. He was blind to the signs of his sister's near attack. Her demise was the sight that the chemo didn't act. He says he could still picture how it was back then. Him and his mom were getting her some food and visiting. They were just in time to see her face lose the color in it. He started screaming for the doctors, but no one came in. To this day he says how he still hates all of them for not helping his sister live on in this world that we're in. How could the Lord just condemn her to death? She didn't deserve it. What's the difference between her and the ones that live? Shit. Fuck. I need to start another draft. Screw it.
I'm farsighted and I decide to see me. I need to focus on a different side of things, because it's clear what my future will bring. I have problems seeing what's right in front of me. I don't know who I am, but I know who I want to be.
After this event, his parents knew they had to make a change, cause they couldn't live in the same place. They lost their daughter that day, so they decided to catch the next plane to move to America to live the dream. He was 16. In 2016 they landed in the country, but when he did he had a bad feeling. He said, I should have said goodbye to everyone before leaving, because what if I never get to again? That's what I was thinking. A few days later, the only sister that he had left called and told him what had happened after they left. His closest cousin had just died the same death by fucking cancer deep within his chest. Who would be next? He would wake up every morning, brush his teeth and wipe his eyes, knowing he'd have to get through the day, knowing he won't be by his side, being tortured because he knows his cousin still lingers in his mind, thinking about what he could have done on the day in which he died. Thinking about what he could have done if he didn't die.
I'm farsighted and I decide to see me. I need to focus on a different side of things, because it's clear what my future will bring. I have problems seeing what's right in front of me. I don't know who I am, but I know who I want to be.
Now his mind was focused on heavy reflection on what he could have done to make this all happen. The result was the start of his deep depression. No progression, never learning his lesson, but on top of that he had to deal with oppression. The oppression of living in this new nation. He couldn't even speak the same language, already at a disadvantage, but eventually he would be vanquished. But to cope with these feelings he turned to the drugs that he smoked. The high would help him escape, or so he hoped. Never coked up but always doped up, and as he choked he hoped he'd be able to cope. He just worked, went to school, sat down and moped. But sadly nothing much has changed ever since. He couldn't even break change to make any sense. He's barely getting by, still having to pay his rent. Making dollars doesn't mean your life will always make sense. Now it's ironic because death is just a part of life. In reality the angels and the reapers coincide, but it's still hard to deal with someone who has just died, because we know they'll never again be right by our side. I wanted this album to be a celebration of life. I explained it using music so you could see it with your eyes. Reminiscing the stages of our lives before we die is a great way to trigger this nostalgia in our time. You can take these lyrics and interpret it how you want. This concept allows everyone to relate to what I've taught. We all deal with these stages before we die and begin to rot. This album is meant to help my visionaries with their thoughts. My vision is farsighted because I can see the future clear, and what is close I have trouble seeing, so I have to squint and peer. Life is a highway, but right now I don't know what way I should steer. Be careful because things in the mirror are closer than they appear.
I'm farsighted and I decide to see me. I need to focus on a different